Hi everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome to another card making video. Earlier this week I posted this spinner card on my blog, and what it does is when you tip it back and forth, the object that you have on your card spins. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I made this card, so let's get started. First, what you're going to need is a normal size card base, cut at 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, and this is the Whisper White. A piece of cardstock cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and this is the Real Red. A piece of DSP, and this DSP is from the new DSP mini pack that's in the holiday mini right now. It's called Festival of Prints, and it has tons of really cute DSP in there. I just love this pack. For this card, you need to cut your DSP at 5 3/8 by 4 3/16. And I am going to have all the dimensions on my blog, so don't worry about that. And then you're going to need a strip of cardstock cut at 5 1/4 by 2 1/2. And this is also in the Real Red. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 Real Red cardstock, and I'm going to adhere it right to my card base. And with this card, unlike the card that I posted on my blog earlier, I cut this right to the dimensions of the card because I didn't want any white to show around the edges. I wanted it to be, a solid red base card. So there's that. Now what I'm going to show you is how you make the actual spinner part. So you're going to take your strip, and I already went ahead and decorated my strip, and I did the tone on tone technique with the Real Red ink on the Real Red cardstock, and I used the Sweets for my Sweet stamp set, and I used that stamp right there because it reminded me of a peppermint, and the peppermint reminded me of a candy cane. So, needless to say, I'm in the Christmas mood. So what you're going to do with this is you're going to take your word window punch, flip it upside down, and stick it in your cardstock in there as far as it can go. And you want to take your cardstock and put it right to the edge of your punch right there. Not to the edge of the word window, but right to the edge of the punch. And if you put your finger flush against there, then you can tell where it's supposed to stop. And then you're just going to punch. And you're going to do this all the way across your card. All the way to the other side, and then you put your finger there again and punch. And then you have your slider. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take my dimensionals, and I'm just going to put dimensionals all around the edges. And for this card, you want to make sure that you use dimensionals rather than sticking this all the way down to your card, because if you stick it all the way down, then your spinner's not going to have any place to spin. So I'm going to set that aside for a second, and I'm going to go ahead and stick my DSP with my snail right to my Real Red cardstock. Get that good and sticky, and then stick that on there. And you want to make sure that your DSP is smaller cut than your card base, because you want that Real Red to be able to frame your DSP. If I can get it straight here. There, that looks good to me. There. Busy paper. So what we're going to do is now we're going to make our actual spinner, and what you're going to need for that is 2 pennies. You're going to take a dimensional and you're going to stick your dimensional in between the 2 pennies. So when you stick them together, you're going to have a little slot in between them. I don't know if you can see that little slot, but, and then this is going to fit right in to your word window that you put. And then it's going to go back and forth, just like that. Okay, so to make my decoration for my spinner, I'm using, again, the Sweets for Sweet stamp set, and I'm going to use the peppermint, my 1-inch circle punch, a piece of scrap white, whisper white cardstock, and my real red ink. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm just going to stamp it right here on the whisper white. Beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and punch this out. And then I'm going to go ahead and punch another circle just to put on the back of it, so it makes the peppermint a little bit heavier for the spinner. So just line that up. There we go. And there's our spinner. So now I'm going to take my snail and get this all nice and snailed and stick it right to my penny. And that's how you make the spinner. So when it goes back and forth, it spins. So I'm going to peel off the dimensionals that I put on the back of my strip earlier, and I'm going to stick this now to my card where I want it. And I think I'm going to put it right there. Looks good. And on the other card that I did, I put this strip all the way to the edge, but because this is such busy paper, I wanted it to have a little bit extra right there so you could see the paper, because I think the DSP is just so cool. So looking at that, I thought that it was just a little bit plain. So what I did to spruce it up a little bit is I took the Snow Much Fun stamp set, and I took this tree right here. And I used 3 different color Copics, YG03, YG67, and E31. And again, these will be on my blog. Went ahead and colored it and cut it out. So I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this, just on the tree part though. And I'm going to leave the base alone for a second. Put those right there. Now I'm going to take my Tombow glue and put it just on the base. There we go. Rip the backs of my dimensionals off and try not to get glue all over my fingers. And then put this right there. And I do the Tombow glue on the bottom and then dimensionals on the top because I don't want it to be flush, but I want to make sure that my bottom is secured now too. So there is my spinner card. And it's a little tough right now only because it's new, but once you start spinning it, it'll loosen up a bit. So you might just have to play with it for a little bit. So for my greeting for this card, I'm using the Mary and Type stamp set, and, or no, I'm sorry, I'm not. I was before, I'm not now. I'm using the Sweets for the Sweet stamp set. Make sure I get the right one, and that's the stamp I'm using, Sweets for the Sweet. So for this one, I'm going to take a piece of scrap Whisper White and a piece of scrap Wild Wasabi. And I'm going to go ahead and punch this out in Lucky Limeade ink. So get that stamped. There we go. I'm going to take my 1-inch circle punch again to punch this out. And then I'm going to take my 1 1/4 circle punch and punch the wild wasabi. Stick my 1-inch circle on my wild wasabi for a backing. There we go. Dimensionals again, if I can find them. Apparently I tossed them to the side, so we're just going to use snail for right now. And stick that right there. There we go. And that's the finished spinner card. So I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, happy inking!